Most traders think blowing an account means they're failing. But sometimes, it means they were getting closer than ever before. And that's the dangerous part. Because nobody warns you what happens when a trader finally starts improving. At the beginning, trading feels impossible. Everything is confusing. Candles move too fast. Strategies contradict each other. Every YouTube trader sounds like a millionaire. Every loss feels personal. In the beginning, most traders are actually careful. They risk small. They hesitate. They overthink every entry. Fear controls them. But then something changes. Slowly, the charts begin making sense. Not completely, but enough. You start noticing patterns before they happen. You become more patient. You stop taking random trades. Your entries improve. And then one day, you catch a clean move. Then another. Then another. Now the account starts growing. Not enough to change your life, but enough to change your emotions. And emotions are where traders begin destroying themselves. Because success does something dangerous to the human mind. It creates urgency. The beginner who once traded carefully starts feeling like he's finally close to freedom, close to consistency, close to escaping the life he hates. And the moment trading becomes emotionally important, everything changes. That's when traders stop thinking clearly. Not because they're stupid, because now there's pressure attached to every trade. The trade is no longer just a setup. Now it means something. It means, maybe this is the week my life changes. And that thought alone can destroy discipline. You probably felt it before. That shift, when patience slowly disappears. The same trader who once waited all day for one clean setup suddenly starts forcing mediocre trades. The same trader who respected risk starts increasing lot sizes. Not dramatically at first, just slightly, because the brain starts whispering dangerous things. You're getting better now. You can handle more size. You finally figured it out. That voice sounds like confidence. But most of the time, it's ego wearing confidence as a disguise. And ego is expensive in trading, because the market has a brutal way of punishing emotional excitement, especially after winning streaks. That's the part nobody talks about enough. Most traders don't blow accounts during their worst phase. They blow them right after their best phase, right after confidence rises, right after they start imagining what profitability could finally feel like. That's when the emotional attachment begins. The trader starts checking the account balance too often, starts calculating future profits before they happen, starts mentally spending money that doesn't exist yet. And without realizing it, trading stops becoming a process. It becomes an emotional escape plan. That's why one loss suddenly feels heavier than before, because now the loss is interrupting a dream. And when human beings feel a dream slipping away, they become irrational. A disciplined trader can suddenly become reckless in a week, sometimes in a single day. One revenge trade, one oversized position, one emotional decision after midnight. That's all it takes. At first, the trader stays calm. It's just one loss. Then another trade fails. Now frustration enters. Then another. Now fear arrives. And fear mixed with urgency is one of the most destructive combinations in trading. Because fear says, slow down. Urgency says, recover faster. And when those two emotions collide, people self-destruct. This is why traders often destroy months of progress in a single weekend. Not because they forgot strategy. Not because they suddenly became dumb. But because their emotional state changed. The market didn't beat their system. The market exposed their instability. That's the difference. Because trading was never designed to test intelligence alone. It tests emotional control, patience, ego, discipline, self-worth. And most traders don't realize something terrifying until it's too late. The closer you get to profitability, the more emotionally dangerous trading becomes. Because now the possibility feels real. And when something feels real, human beings become desperate not to lose it. That desperation is subtle at first. It hides itself. It sounds like ambition, motivation, belief. But underneath it, there's fear. Fear of staying stuck forever. Fear of failure. Fear that this might have been your only chance. So the trader starts pushing harder. More trades, more size, more pressure, until eventually, The account breaks. And when it happens, most traders say the same thing. I was actually doing so well. Exactly. That's why it hurts so much. Because the account didn't explode when you were clueless. It exploded when you finally started believing success was close enough to touch. And that changes how people behave, especially people who are emotionally exhausted. But the real reason this happens has almost nothing to do with strategy. It has to do with identity. Because somewhere along the journey, the trader stopped trying to trade well and started trying to prove something to himself. That's the trap. Because the moment trading becomes tied to identity, losses stop feeling financial. They become emotional. A losing trade no longer says, that setup failed. Now it says, you failed. And once that happens, the trader is no longer operating from clarity. He's operating from wounded emotion. This is why some traders stare at charts for 10 hours a day and still lose money. Not because they lack knowledge, because deep down, they're no longer trading to execute well. They're trading to feel worthy, to feel intelligent, to feel successful, to finally feel like they matter. And the market is a brutal place to seek self-worth, because the market gives and takes without emotion. It doesn't care how badly you need this. It doesn't care about your rent, your debt, your family, your dreams. It simply moves. Cold, indifferent, unemotional, which is exactly why emotionally unstable traders suffer the most. You can always tell when a trader's identity has become attached to performance. They can't handle losses calmly anymore. A small drawdown ruins their mood. A losing day destroys their confidence. One bad week makes them question their future. Why? Because every trade now feels personal. The market is no longer attacking their account. It's attacking their ego. And ego always fights back. That's why revenge trading feels so powerful. People think revenge trading is about money. Most of the time, it's about pride. The trader isn't trying to recover financially. He's trying to recover emotionally, trying to erase embarrassment, trying to prove he's still smart, try to take control again. That's why revenge trades are usually bigger, more emotional, more reckless, because wounded ego wants instant relief. And instant relief is dangerous in trading. Very dangerous. The market punishes emotional urgency with almost surgical precision. Have you ever noticed how traders become most reckless after they feel humiliated? After a stupid mistake? After giving back profits? After taking a loss they should have avoided? That emotional pain creates internal chaos. And chaotic minds make impulsive decisions. The trader starts clicking without clarity, entering without confirmation, holding losers too long, closing winners too early. Not because the strategy stopped working, but because emotional noise has taken over execution. That's the hidden battle most traders never understand. Trading is not just skill versus market. It's behavior versus emotion. And behavior always breaks first under emotional pressure. That's why two traders can use the exact same strategy and get completely different results. One trader remains calm during drawdowns. The other panics. One follows the plan. The other improvises emotionally. One thinks in probabilities. The other thinks in survival. And survival mode traders always destroy consistency eventually. Because survival creates desperation. Desperation creates impulsiveness. And impulsive traders cannot think long-term. That's why the market keeps trapping emotionally exhausted people. It dangles hope in front of them, then watches them become impatient trying to grab it. A trader doubles the lot size because he's close. Takes 5 trades in one session because he wants faster progress. Breaks risk management because he wants this month to finally be different. And underneath all of it, there's usually one hidden emotion driving everything. Fear that time is running out. That fear is heavier than most people realize, especially for traders who feel behind in life. People watching others succeed online. People carrying financial pressure. People feeling trapped in jobs they hate. People desperately wanting trading to work. Those emotions quietly leak into execution. That's why some traders don't actually want consistency. They want escape. And those are completely different mindsets. Consistency is slow, repetitive, sometimes boring. Escape is emotional, urgent, desperate. One mindset builds accounts. The other destroys them. This is why becoming profitable often requires something painful. You have to stop using trading as emotional salvation. That's hard for most people to accept, because many traders secretly believe profitability will fix their life emotionally. That once they make enough money, the anxiety disappears, the insecurity disappears, the self-doubt disappears. But money amplifies psychology more than it fixes it. An undisciplined trader with a bigger account usually becomes a more dangerous version of himself. More emotional, more fearful, more greedy, because bigger money magnifies emotional instability. That's why the market often forces traders into painful lessons repeatedly, not to destroy them, but to expose what still controls them emotionally. Ego, impatience, validation, fear, greed. The market brings all of it to the surface eventually. And the traders who survive long-term are usually not the smartest. They're the ones willing to confront themselves honestly. That's rare, very rare, because most people would rather search for a new strategy than face the possibility that they are the real problem. So they keep hopping from system to system, indicator to indicator, guru to guru, never realizing the issue was never the setup. It was the emotional state behind the execution. A fearful trader can destroy a good strategy. An impatient trader can sabotage perfect risk management. An emotional trader can turn even a profitable system into chaos. That's why profitability changes when the trader changes. Not just the strategy. The strategy matters. Of course it matters. But there comes a point where technical knowledge stops being the main obstacle, and emotional maturity becomes the real edge. Because eventually, every trader reaches a moment where the charts are no longer the hardest thing to manage. They are. And most traders spend years learning the market before realizing they never truly learn themselves. And maybe that's the hardest part of trading. Not the losses, not the drawdowns, not even the blown accounts. The hardest part is realizing the market has been showing you who you are this entire time. Patient or impatient, disciplined or emotional, humble or arrogant, stable or desperate. Because eventually, every trader reaches a point where excuses stop working. You can only blame the market for so long. Only blame manipulation, bad luck, fake gurus, smart money, until one day, you sit alone after another painful loss. And a terrifying thought enters your mind. What if the problem has been me the whole time? That realization hurts. But it also changes everything. Because that's usually the moment real traders are born. Not when they find the perfect strategy. Not when they catch a massive trade. But when they finally become honest with themselves. Brutally honest. About their impatience. About their greed. About the emotional chaos they keep bringing into execution. That honesty is painful. Because the ego hates accountability. The ego would rather protect itself than improve. It wants shortcuts, fast money, instant results. But the market rewards something very different. Calmness, consistency, emotional control, the ability to think clearly under pressure. And those qualities take time to build. A long time. That's why profitable traders often seem boring. Because they stop chasing emotional highs. They stop needing every trade to feel exciting. They stop trying to prove themselves through lot sizes and fast profits. They learn something most struggling traders never fully understand. The goal is not to win big. The goal is to survive long enough to become consistent. That changes how you see everything. A loss no longer feels like a personal attack. It becomes information, feedback, probability playing out over time. And when a trader finally understands that deeply, emotion starts losing control over execution. That's when patience begins returning. That's when discipline becomes easier. Not because the trader became emotionless, but because they stopped attaching their identity to every outcome. A losing trade no longer destroys their confidence. A winning trade no longer inflates their ego. They become steadier, more neutral, more focused, and ironically, that's usually when profitability finally begins. Not when the trader becomes obsessed with making money, but when they stop emotionally needing every trade to validate them. Because the truth is, the market can sense emotional desperation, not literally, but through behavior. Desperate traders force trades. Desperate traders over-leverage. Desperate traders abandon process under pressure. And over time, desperation leaves fingerprints on execution. That's why some traders stay stuck for years, even with solid strategies. Their emotions keep interrupting their edge. But once emotional stability improves, everything changes. Execution becomes cleaner. Risk management becomes easier. Patience stops feeling painful. The trader no longer feels the need to chase every candle. And that's when trading starts becoming quieter internally. Less chaotic, less emotional, more professional. Most people never reach that stage. Because most people quit right before this transformation happens. They quit after blowing another account. Quit after another emotional mistake. Quit after convincing themselves they're simply not meant for trading. But sometimes, the trader who blows an account is not failing because they lack potential. Sometimes they're failing because they're standing at the edge of a psychological breakthrough they don't yet understand. Because trading has a strange way of breaking people before it teaches them. It humbles arrogance, punishes greed, exposes emotional weakness. And if the trader is willing to learn from those experiences instead of running from them, the pain slowly becomes wisdom. That's why some traders come back stronger after blowing accounts. Not because the loss made them better automatically, but because suffering forced them to finally change, to slow down, to respect risk, to stop treating trading like a casino, to stop trying to become rich overnight, to stop trying to escape their life emotionally through the charts. And once those shifts happen, the trader becomes dangerous in a completely different way. Calmer, sharper, more patient, not desperate anymore. That's the version of a trader the market struggles to break. Because emotionally stable traders don't need to force outcomes. They understand something beginners never do. There will always be another trade tomorrow. That mindset changes everything. Suddenly the trader doesn't panic during drawdowns, doesn't spiral emotionally after losses, doesn't feel the need to make everything back immediately. And because they stop acting emotionally, their consistency improves naturally. This is the irony most traders never see. The account usually starts growing after the obsession with money starts shrinking. Because now the trader is focused on execution instead of emotional survival. Process instead of pressure. Discipline instead of urgency. And maybe that's the real reason traders blow accounts right before profitability. Not because they were incapable of success, but because the final stage of becoming profitable requires letting go of the emotional version of yourself that needed trading to save you. And for many people, that's the hardest trade they will ever make. The trade against their own ego. The trade against impatience. The trade against fear. The trade against emotional desperation. Because in the end, the market was never just teaching you how to trade. It was teaching you how to think, how to wait, how to control yourself under pressure, how to detach emotion from decision-making, how to become stable in uncertainty. And the traders who finally understand that usually stop chasing the market and start mastering themselves. That's when everything changes. Quietly, slowly, then all at once.